Aha! Always wanted to use that button. Wondered what it did. So now I figured out it's a little tribute to the dude there, I suppose. He used to like his little musical intros that were on his premieres. So yesterday, New Year's Day, was my best day ever for the old steps. My new personal best, 21,400, which was 18.1 kilometres, so it's around about 11 miles walked yesterday. Today we went out and did another trek around the frozen tundra here in Galashiels, and nearly up to 10,000, so making good progress. And that's the reason why we had to split it into two parts. Not much further to go with this second part, so let's just dive straight in there. Hi there, Jazz and Sean and Little Bob. Hi there. Let's pop that button on. Let's click on that one and that one and that one, and I think everything is working. Oh, hi Dark Side. Dark Side, Jazz next. Just finished watching some Lou Zun videos. I think I've heard of that. When I first started, yeah, there it comes up in the chat. When I first started getting in touch with Sheriff Herman, he immediately sent me a link to Dan O'Donnell's I can't remember what he actually called them. I don't think he called it convicting a murderer, but it was his rebuttal of making a murderer, and it was just complete nonsense. And but of course, typical of some of the lawyers with their sort of, I suppose we would call it cognitive dissonance, but just the fact that lawyers can make up an excuse for anything, it's when we get down to the nitty gritty of facts that everything starts to fall apart for them. Anyway, let's carry on with the next part of this. Here we go. I think we're at the right bit. Yeah, rebutting a murder, that was it, yes. I say, I always got on well with Robert Herman. He knew where I was coming from. I think he accepted the fact that his department was caught out totally, and he was just left trying to do his best to cover up and come out with some of the sort of things that he had said to so many people over the years. And one of the last things he ever said to me was that if there was ever any evidence of planting by anybody in his department, he would get in touch with Kathleen Zellner. One always wonders if evidence was planted for the benefit of Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department to find. But that's just speculation. We don't know how some of this bizarre so-called evidence ended up where it did. That's for the state to have to try and justify now that Kathleen Zellner, to use the technical term, is impeaching every single bit of their evidence. So we got as far as let's just do this final paragraph on page 17. Stephen was asked how he met Jodie, and he said he met her at a gas station and commented that if he would have stayed there, presumably wherever Jodie was staying, maybe she lived near a gas station, she would not have been in trouble. He advised that she had gotten arrested for drunk driving and she was currently serving 9 months in jail. Stephen asked about the cop, and he said he wanted to talk about it. Okay, Stephen said that Tammy Webber told him she had been told by someone that a cop said another cop put Teresa's vehicle on the Avery property and planted evidence. Well, there we go. Webber did not know what agency the cop worked for, who the cop was, where the cop put her vehicle, the type of evidence, or where the evidence was put. Well, I'm not surprised, because it's kind of third or fourth hand knowledge. So you've got one cop that told another cop that told somebody that told Tammy Webber. So yeah, I'll make that third or fourth hand. Webber told him they were trying to set him up for the Bernstein case and Teresa's family. Rather bizarre. Anyway, maybe just getting confused. Stephen said Bernstein knows Teresa's family and everything else. Stephen was asked if Teresa's family was involved in setting him up. Stephen basically said he was unsure how Webber said it. I wonder if Steve had the benefit of hearing Mike Holbach referring to the grieving process. I mean, at that point there, that's all Stephen should have said. You're coming after me. Now, go and ask Mike Holbach what he means by the grieving process could last days. Anyway, Stephen advised they were trying to put the rap on him. Absolutely. He doesn't know who. Well, obviously the various sheriff's departments. Anyway, Stephen said he saw tail lights by his place and that Chuck saw headlights over at his place. Steve did not know which way the truck, as in Teresa's vehicle, was pointed when it was found in the salvage yard. Steve said they drove her vehicle onto the property. Steve said there are a bunch of ways to get into the property and specified the main road by him, meaning from the field, of course, and in the pit. He said you can get in by him through the field. Remember, that's something that Millbillies always told us. That, back then, there was a perfect access past, right up to his trailer. Stephen said everyone knew what kind of vehicle Teresa had and said it was a Toyota. But he said he didn't know if it was a four-wheel or two-wheel drive. I think most of those RAV4s, those early RAV4s, were four-wheel drive, as far as I know anyway. Certainly here in the UK, I think most of them were. Stephen advised that Webber phoned him last night sometime and told him this. He advised he got a hold of her twice this morning. Stephen advised that Webber was a friend of his at one time and he knows her. Stephen said he has not been in the yard way down in there. Stephen said he has not been in the yard way down in there and does not go there every day or hardly at all. He said he did not see anything last time he was down there when they were shooting. But he wasn't looking. He said, if it's sticking out, you might notice it. Stephen said he didn't notice it, or he would have went over and checked it out. He said he put the car in the crusher, crushed it, and went back up. He said, you go down, do what you have to do, and go back up. At 3:24, Stephen was asked if he wanted a break and a soda, and he advised yes. Bert and Ernie then left the interview room. At about 3:30, Bert and Ernie went back into the interview room and provided Steve with a Mountain Dew soda. Steve was asked if he wanted to talk, and he said he did not know. what he was going to say. Stephen asked them how come everything comes from Manitowoc, referencing the paperwork, and he was told because they were in Manitowoc County. It was pointed out that the paperwork was prepared by Calumet County officials. Fassbender also showed him the complaint for his arrest warrant. There was some discussion about whether he would go to court tomorrow or not. There were also comments by Stephen about how everything he does should just be recorded, because then he would not be a suspect. Wiegand asked Stephen if he wanted to continue talking, and Stephen stated, "Let's talk." Stephen was told the investigators believed Stephen had a role in Holbach's death. Okay, so eventually, because they've read him the Miranda warnings, this is what Richard Leo tells us, that then they can carry straight on into the accusatorial stage of the interrogation. Stephen was told the investigators believed Stephen had a role in Holbach's death. Stephen made many denials and comments, including the following. He didn't put anything in her car that was gone. It wasn't there, in response to some of her bones being found in the burning area. He didn't do it. He didn't know how all her stuff got on his property. Her blood is not in his house. Holbach was never in his house. The key was planted. He used to leave his house open all the time. Someone was in his house smoking, and it may have been the person who planted the stuff. It was a setup. His DNA couldn't be in Holbach's vehicle. Certainly his DNA isn't. Planted blood, yes. He was maybe by her door in response to his print's person in her car. So obviously they're telling him, well, we've got your prints in Teresa's car. And I think we hear that, don't we, in Making a Murder? And he says, no, you can't. That's impossible. It's a lot harder to plant prints. But he did say he was maybe by her door in response to his print person in the car. People have his fingerprints, like the crime lab, Manitowoc Police, and blood. He isn't home all the time during the week, and that he works in the garage. Why would he talk to officers if he did it? How could he have done it? Because his mother and brother came down and he was over by his sisters and he did not know who did it. And that's the other thing, isn't it? You know, like people who are being sussed out, who have got guilty consciences, they immediately point at somebody else. Steve doesn't do that. He never says, you want to look at Bobby or you want to look at Scott. You know, even in that very heated phone exchange between him and Bob, he simply says, you know, it's not up to me. It's Kathleen Zellner, and she's going to go where the evidence takes her. Anyway, as I say, how could he have done it? Because his mother and brother came down that day and he was over by his sister. So he's between his mum and his brother's house and his sister. And he did not know who did it. And if he did it, he would have crushed the son of a bitch with the Holbach's vehicle. He did 18 years. You think he wants to do any more? And he asked about the other person Teresa saw after him. Mm-hmm. At approximately 3:44, Stephen advised he was done talking and wanted a lawyer. At that time, Wiegand and Fassbender stopped asking questions. Clearly, they've been giving him quite a hard going, accusing him constantly. Because if we look at the previous time, at 3:30, so they've been going at him for a quarter of an hour. And by that time, he said, look, you know, I'm answering all your questions. You're not listening. Advised he was done talking and wanted a lawyer. At that time, Wiegert and Fassbender, Bert and Ernie stopped asking questions. Stephen commented that the office that they may as well take him to Manitowoc County after the questioning was stopped. Stephen continued to make comments and denials for a while. Okay. Steve was placed in handcuffs at approximately 3:45. At 3:48, he was taken from the room for transport to the Calumet County Jail. When Wiegert placed the handcuffs on Steve, he did complain that they were too tight, and Wiegert repositioned, loosened the cuffs. At approximately 3:53, Stephen was placed in Fassbender's vehicle for transport to the Calumet County Jail. Upon entering the vehicle, Fassbender turned the recorder on. Stephen was then transported to the Holiday Inn Motel in Manitowoc. The Holiday Inn Motel, where's that? Could that have been the Baymont back in 2005? Who knows? Where he was transferred to Deputy Jennifer Bass of the Calumet County Sheriff's Department, who in turn transported him to Calumet County Jail. At approximately 4:12, Fassbender arrived at the Holiday Inn. During the transport, Steve did make a comment that the handcuffs were still not comfortable, and Wiegert told Stephen that they were going to be meeting a deputy to transfer him, and when he did so, he would take those off and he would be handcuffed in front by a belt. 4:23, Fassbender changed the microset tape as it had reached the end of that side. 4:25, Deputy Bass arrived and custody of Stephen was transferred to here. 4:28, Bass began her transport of Steve to the Calumet County Jail. So in this report, this is some of the evidence that they are presenting. After the interview, Fassbender received the VHS videotape utilized for the recording of the interview. Obviously the videotape that was in the Two Rivers police station. And then on the 13th of November, Fassbender assigned property receipt number to the videotape utilized by the Manitowoc Police Department. Okay. Conversations during transport with Steve in Fassbender's vehicle were also recorded, as noted earlier. Fassbender assigned property receipt to one microcassette and one Sony microcassette, both containing post-arrest conversation during Steve's transport. Both sides, A and B, were recorded on the Panasonic microcassette. Fassbender made duplicate copies of the videotape and gave them to Investigator Wiegert, and the evidence was maintained in Fassbender's exclusive possession until the 21st of 11th, 2005, 21st November. Some evidence was maintained in Fassbender's exclusive possession for a lot longer than that. When it was transferred to Special Agent James Holmes, Holmes was then to transfer the evidence to Larry Flessert, who was going to make duplicate recordings of the microcassettes. He was also going to attempt to enhance the audio portion of the videotape and place it on a CD. It is anticipated that a transcript will be prepared from the recordings. Said transcript will be covered by a separate report to this case file. Copies of the arrest warrant, criminal complaint, search warrant and affidavit for search warrant and the Miranda warning form signed by Stephen Avery will be electronically attached to this report and forwarded to DCIR. Here is the actual search warrant. Whereas Investigator Wiegert of the Calumet County Sheriff's Department has this day complained to the said court in writing that on the 7th day of November 2005 in said county, in and upon a certain person, namely Stephen Avery, Township of Gibson, County Manitowoc, State of Wisconsin, more particularly described as a white male, date of birth, the 9th of July, 1962, weighing 218 pounds, 5'6", tall, which isn't very tall, of course, blue eyes and blonde hair. Although that's interesting, isn't it? In always remember in Greaseback's book, Steve's height fluctuates from 5 foot nothing to 5'3" to 5'6". Greaseback can't even get simple facts right. Okay, who and the person obviously who they're wanting Steve for his DNA, whose DNA may constitute evidence of a crime, to wit, homicide, sexual assault, kidnapping. It's interesting, isn't it, that they're adding all this sexual assault, kidnapping, long before they've managed to coerce this confession from Brendan. Mutilating or hiding a corpse and false imprisonment, contrary to Wisconsin statutes. Now, therefore, in the name of the state of Wisconsin, you are commanded forthwith to deliver Stephen Avery to provide a sample of his DNA, including, but not limited to, a saliva and blood sample. So they knew perfectly well. Wiegert knew perfectly well what he was supposed to be getting, a saliva and a blood sample. And that's when, at the Aurora Medical Centre, take a couple of groin swabs. Oh, we don't actually need that. Just bin them. And while Steve is leaving, I can quickly pick up one of them. So as I say, Wiegert knew perfectly well what he was supposed to be getting, a saliva and blood sample, to be obtained by a trained evidence technician and trained medical personnel. Stephen Avery is ordered to provide both finger and palm prints to a trained evidence technician. The physical person of Stephen Avery shall be searched, photographed, and documented for defensive wounds, including but not limited to scratches, bruises, and bite marks. Oh my goodness, can you imagine if you had somebody like Michael West operating in Wisconsin? If said evidence can be collected, you are authorized to conduct necessary tests and to safely keep the remaining evidence so long as necessary for use as evidence at a trial or until further order of the court. It's signed by, I believe this is Judge Jerome Fox. Received by me, Investigator Wiegert, 7th of November 2005, and signed by Wendy Baldwin, who was then scratched out Mark Wiegert's name and reinserted her name again. Affidavit for search warrant, State of Wisconsin, Manitowoc County. Whereas Investigator John Diedering of the Calumet County Sheriff's Department, being first duly sworn on oath, states on information and belief that the facts tending to establish the grounds for issuing a search warrant are as follows. Your affiant is an investigator with the Calumet County Sheriff's Department, a very popular one because he was pulled out of hibernation, or was it, retirement, in order to reinvestigate the case, without telling, of course, Kathleen Zellner. The only thing he did say was to Barb, don't give Kathleen Zellner that computer. Anyway, is an investigator with CASO. Your affiant has duties that include homicide, sexual assault, kidnapping, mutilating, or hiding a corpse, and false imprisonment. So his duties directly line up with the charges. Okay. In and around Calumet County, Wisconsin. On November the 5th, the CASO was requested by MTSO to lead the investigation on behalf of the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department under the doctrine of mutual aid. You call it mutual aid, I call it a conflict of interest. Your affiant is informed that on November the 3rd, 2005, at 5 p.m. Okay, so this is Thursday. Karen Holbach contacted CASO. Karen stated that her daughter, Teresa Marie Holbach, had not been seen or heard from since Monday. So this is basically 4 days, isn't it? since Monday, October the 31st. Karen said it was unusual for Teresa not to have had personal or telephone contact with her family or friends for this length of time. Karen stated that her daughter was driving a Toyota RAV4, dark blue in colour. Your scientist informed that on November the 4th, investigator Remika, a MEN TSO, interviewed Steve on November the 4th. Okay. Upon speaking with Steve stated that he resides at 12932 Avery Road in the town of Gibson, Manitowoc County. Avery also did provide Dave with verbal consent to search his residence, and Dave was allowed into Steve's residence on November the 4th. Steve informed Dave that Teresa Holbach was on his property on Monday, October 31st, to take photographs of a vehicle he was selling. Steve stated that Barb Yander, who lives at 12930 Avery Road in the town of Gibson, Manitowoc, Wisconsin, her residence is very close in proximity to the location where Teresa conducted her business on the Avery property on October the 31st. Okay. On November the 5th as well, your affiant observed the property at 12932 Avery Road in the town of Gibson, occupied by Stephen Avery Sr. Your affiant states that the residences and garages are located within the property of Avery Auto Salvage. The salvage yard is approximately 40 acres in size. It's massive, and is surrounded by a berm and some fencing. On the property, there are numerous outbuildings, residences and vehicles, those that are operational and also junked and scrapped vehicles associated with the business. Your affiant is aware that Stephen Avery is employed by the salvage yard and would have access to all the buildings, vehicles and the residences on that piece of land. Your affiant is informed that on November the 5th, officers received information from volunteer searchers that they had located a vehicle matching the description of the vehicle owned by Teresa at the salvage yard. The vehicle was not located at 12932 Avery Road, but anyway, we get the gist. Your affiant is informed that Dave was provided with the VIN number of the RAV4 located at the salvage yard. The searchers provided the VIN taken from the vehicle which they located, and Dave was able to confirm that the VIN is the correct number for Teresa's RAV4. During a visual observation of the vehicle, Remington noted that there were tree branches covering the vehicle and also vehicle parts placed alongside of the vehicle, which looked as though someone had attempted to conceal the vehicle. The vehicle was subsequently seized and transported to the Wisconsin Crime Laboratory. The affiant states that on November the 5th, Dave carried out a physical search of the residence of Steve's residence at the residence of Stephen Avery, and Dave observed a dried red substance which appeared to be blood on the wood trim and side door of Stephen's residence. The door and trim was located in close proximity to a bathroom which contained identifiers for Stephen Avery. Contained identifiers. Oh well, okay. Dave also identified a dried red substance which appeared to be blood on the bathroom floor in front of the washer and dryer at Steve's residence. The affiant also states on November the 6th that Dave carried out a search of a detached garage next to Stephen's residence. Dave located approximately 7 different locations within the garage floor where a dried red substance, which appeared to be blood, was found. Dave also located approximately 11 spent caliber long rifle shell casings on the floor of the garage. He didn't He didn't locate a bullet sitting on a pile of dust, did he? No. Okay. Dave also observed a 5-speed Suzuki Samurai vehicle, green in colour. Dave noted that there appeared to be latent finger and palm prints on the rear window of the vehicle. Dave noted that the latent prints were found in close proximity to areas of dried blood on the garage floor. The find was also informed by Tom that blood was found in the... Well, okay, now all of a sudden the vehicle has gone back 2 years in age. It's 2 years older, but never mind. Just a typo. Toyota RAV4 belonging to Teresa and located within the Avery Auto Salvage compound. Steve Harrington of the State of Wisconsin Crime Laboratory in Madison stated that technicians had located presumptive blood in the rear cargo portion of the vehicle and also in the front of the vehicle in the ignition area. Steve Harrington further identified that technicians also located visible palm prints on the rear hatch area of the Toyota RAV4. That's interesting. Visible palm prints. We know about A23, so there's others. The affiant states that he was informed by Wendy Baldwin of Queso that she had found blood on a number of vehicles in the Avery Auto Salvage yard. Officer Baldwin indicated that on November the 6th, she was working with a cadaver dog known as Brutus, handled by the Great Lakes Search Team. Investigator Baldwin indicated that Brutus hit on a plastic tarpaulin that was found over a vehicle. And Investigator Baldwin noted that Brutus hit on a second grey vehicle in an adjacent location, and a subsequent search of the interior of the vehicle identified a rag which appeared to be blood stained. Was this the rag that was used to scoop up the blood from Stephen's sink? I mean, one of the things to bear in mind, of course, is that sadly, if you've got vehicles at a scrapyard that have been involved in accidents, you will tend to find blood inside them where people have been injured. Anyway, Wendy, the light for Wendy, indicated that she was present when Brutus hit on a third vehicle, and a subsequent search identified what appeared to be dried blood in both the front and back seat. As I say, that's not unusual, I'm afraid, for a scrap car. Your affiant, believes that based on Teresa's lack of contact with her employer and family members and her vehicle being abandoned at the salvage yard, that Teresa Holbach is the victim of a crime including, but not limited to, homicide, sexual assault, kidnapping, false imprisonment, and theft. Now, that's a bit of a jump, isn't it? You know, we know that she's missing and they've discovered these bones, but I don't think they've even remains. I don't think they've actually... Well, they've never decided that they're hers. I just find some of this rather strange. Your affiant states that based upon his training and experience, his investigation of homicide and assaults, it is common for the perpetrator to sustain injuries, including but not limited to scratches, bruises, and bite marks. The affiant states that Earl Avery, Dolores, Stephen, Barb, Chuck, Alan Parr, and Bobby all reside and or work at the salvage yard. The above named individuals would have had access to the Toyota that suddenly got 2 years older, owned by Teresa Holbach and located at the salvage compound. And found it because they work or reside within the compound. The affiant states that he has reviewed Wisconsin Department of Transportation records concerning Stephen Avery. The affiant states that he has utilized said records before and has found them to be reliable. The affiant states that the Department of Transportation records indicate that Stephen Avery is described as a white male, 5'6", weighing 218 pounds, blonde hairs, blue eyes. Your affiant states that Department of Transportation records confirm that Steve resides at, well, again, they've got the wrong address, but, we're just being a bit picky. It's 12932, 12930 is Barb's address, Two Rivers. The affiant states that searching persons of Earl Avery, Dolores, Steve, Barb, Charles, Chuck, Alan, and Bobby for defensive wounds and drawing blood and taking finger and palm prints will aid in the investigation of the case by providing standards for crime lab analysis. So there's Wiegert's signature. Subscribed and sworn to before me this 7th day of November 2005. The 7th? Are they even... The 7th, was it not the 8th when they found the bones? The remains? They certainly seem to be jumping the gun a bit, don't they? Oh, and here we have Wiegert, and here we have Ken Kratz. I have no idea what he's put there. Notary public. My commission is foremost. I don't know. Or scribble. No, that's a scribble. But we do get okay, this is the criminal complaint and warrant. This again, November the 9th. Tom of the Wisconsin DOJ Division of DCI, being first duly sworn, states that count 1, possession of a firearm by a felon. The above named defendant on Friday, November the 4th at 12932 Avery Road, Wisconsin, did possess a firearm subsequent to the conviction for the felony or other crime as specified in subsection 1A or B, contrary to Wisconsin statutes, a Class G felony, and upon conviction may be fined not more than $25,000 or imprisoned not more than 10 years or both. Criminal complainant states that he is an officer, is an officer with the DOJ, DCI, and bases this complaint upon the records and investigations of Bill Tyson, Dan Kucharski of CASA, Stephen Avery. The statements of Deputy Tyson and Kucharski are presumed to be truthful and reliable as made by sworn law enforcement officials. The statements of Stephen Avery, which were made against his penal interests, are presumed truthful and reliable. Complainant states that on February 4th, Dave interviewed Steve. Upon speaking with Steve, Steve stated that he resides at his address and was at his residence until November the 4th, when he joined his family for a weekend trip to their cabin in Marinette County, Wisconsin. On November the 6th, Tyson and Kucharski searched a bedroom in the trailer located at 12932 Avery Road. I have a funny feeling it wasn't just Kucharski and Tyson. The residence of Stephen Avery. Deputy Tyson located 2 firearms directly above the bed. Deputy Kucharski collected as evidence a .22 caliber semi-automatic rifle and a .50 caliber black powder muzzle loader. Deputy Kucharski noted that there was masking tape attached to the muzzle loader with the name Steve written on it. Not on Rolly Johnson's rifle. Okay, so Bill, I think his name Bill Bulldog Tyson, located a desk in the same room which contained numerous magazines addressed to Steve. Also located in Steve's unattached garage were 11 spent .22 caliber shell casings. Your complainant has reviewed official files of the District Attorney's Office, which include a teletype of the defendant's prior criminal history as compiled in a record. Complainant states that he has utilized said records in the past and has found them to be reliable. Complainant states that on March 23rd, 1981, Stephen Avery was convicted of burglary, a felony in Manitowoc County. Complaint also states that on November the 23rd, 1982, Steve was convicted of a second burglary in Manitowoc. Complainant also states that Stephen Avery was convicted of endangering safety by conduct regardless of life as a repeater and felon possessing firearm as a repeater, both felony offences in Manitowoc County. Case number. Complainant states that said convictions remain of record and have not been reversed. I wonder why they never mentioned the cat. Okay, anyway, based on the foregoing, the complainant believes this complaint to be true and correct. It's 9th day of November. Here's Tom Fassbender, and here's Ken Kratz, District Attorney, who has to put in brackets, Special Prosecutor. Oh yes, Ken, you are so special. You are the prize. I think that's just about it. Stephen Avery, arrest, bench, warrant to any law enforcement officer. Arrest and bring the above named person before me, or if I'm not available, before some other judge or court commissioner of this county, because a complaint citation has been filed charging the defendant with the commission of an offence or offences. The defendant has not previously appeared in or submitted to the jurisdiction of a court. A copy of the complaint or citation must always be attached. For a citation, an affidavit of the court officer is recommended. The name of the crime and statutory references in the complaint citation are incorporated into this warrant. I have reviewed the complaint citation and find probable cause to believe the defendant committed the offences. So they've ticked box A. Amount due. Body only. Steve has to bring his body in. Okay. And there finally we get Jerome L. Fox. Well, there he signed it, and there he scribbled his name. And then, as I say, we're back to the Miranda warning and the waiver. And as I say, there we get the it says a videotape, because that was one of the things that was taken. Transfer to these are probably the other. So some transfer signatures. To audio tapes. Seems to be a repeat of what we've just seen. Oh, transfer to Appleton, yes. Tech unit for copying. Transfer to Appleton. Transfer to Appleton for them to do further copies. Okay, haven't read through that. I do find that rather strange that they are getting deed ringing, and already he's decided all these various charges that's going to be applied to Steve. A bit presumptive. Anyway, Yeah. That's exactly what she said, didn't she? Was we should take all these issues and solve a few crimes in Manitoba or elsewhere. Because what they could do is they could then fabricate evidence. Okay. Okay. So, well, there we go. That was the search warrant, and the interesting sort of conversation between Steve and Wiegert and Fassbender. Steve knows what's going down, and he just can't do anything about it. But he's as honest. He's as honest as he can be with them, although not knowing all the facts and being able to immediately say on what days certain things happened. You know, he's kind of guessing. Um, so anyway, Dark Side, Sean, Jazz. Who else have we got here? Oh, Disco Perverts here. And Shane. Hi, Shane. Oh, T1. Hi, T1. Shane, T1. I don't recall. I don't recall. Who else have we got here? Little Bob. Okay, I think that'll do fine for today. So thanks for bearing with me. As I say, really wanted to just look at the document, see what we think. You know, often with the benefit of looking back now, with knowing what we know about the case, it's very interesting, isn't it, to see what was happening right at the start there. Enjoy the rest of the evening. We'll catch you all again soon. Yes, sorry, quick intimations. So it was great to have a chat with Pete yesterday. Aiming to do another chat with Pete on next Saturday, coming as usual, either 2 or 3:30 his time. I have been in touch with Rob Bellin. A lot of you remember Rob Bellin. We had one chat with him. We've only had one chat with him so far on the Dude's channel, at least a year ago. And that was very, very interesting. Does everybody remember who Rob Bellin is? Okay, let's see. Who's the first one to put in the comment who Rob Bellin is? And also, of course, not this. It was going to be this Tuesday, the 5th, but Mark. No, not Steve Moore. No, I've never had a chat with Steve Moore. Rob Bellin he described himself as a talking head on the at the time of the trial, a lawyer that was given, you know, his sort of opinion on how the case was shaping up, involved in the no, as I say, he's not a DNA. He's a lawyer in Wisconsin, nearby. Knows a lot about the Michael Funk case, the friends with Steve Arato, and yes, was at one point when Ken Kratz was facing a civil suit by Stephanie Van Groll. Rob Bellin was one of Ken Kratz's defence attorneys. And I think one of the funniest things I ever saw was when Bob replied that, you know, I said, you know, Ken Kratz, he's got like 4 different lawyers representing him, you know. And his reply was, well, when you've got that many civil suits against you, you need that many lawyers. Anyway, sorry, I'm hoping to have Rob on pretty soon. Mark Godsey, not this Tuesday, hopefully next Wednesday. Sorry, as in a week later, 8 days later, on Wednesday the 13th, half an hour earlier than it should have been. He did send me an email and he apologised for the fact that he's got a court case coming up, and it was the only time he could video conference was the time that he'd already allocated to me. And I said, that's absolutely fine, we quite understand. Okay, so anyway, we'll catch you soon. Take care. As I say, enjoy the rest of the evening or afternoon or whatever. And yeah, see you later. Bye for now.